Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshop, where we get together in the middle of the week to learn more about technology. Welcome to our first workshop of 2025. Today we've got a very interesting, fun, enjoyable, sit back and enjoy type workshop. JB Burke is going to be here with us. JB grew up in Chicago and graduated from Illinois Institute of Technology in 1963. He moved to Silicon Valley in '68 and worked for IBM, 32 years with those guys, and some other techs in the tech industry for a total of 40 years. He moved to Prescott, Arizona with his wife of now 59 years, Nita, back in 2004. JB currently is president of the Prescott Computer Society and secretary of the board of his neighborhood HOA. He also provides tech support for friends and neighbors. JB dabbles in photography, member of the tech committee for the Yavapai, I hope that's close, college OLLI program, and he teaches occasional OLLI classes, Online Learning Institute. Otherwise, he's like the rest of us, he's retired. JB does a lot with the internet, and we thought it would be really fun to start off 2025 with JB giving us his end of the year 2024 tour of the web. So JB, I'll turn things over to you and give us some good insight into the web in 2024 and what's coming in 2025.
We're in the web number 11. Post-election, I referred to it as, because it was right after the election that I first did this. But first, one quick nonpartisan political statement. I read cartoons as part of what I read every day, and this is a particular cartoon because I'm here to vote. Sure, but before we do, quick question. How many branches of government can you name? It says, don't know, don't care. He says, okay, no problem. Here's your ballot. Your voting booth is that porta potty around the corner. Just drop your completed ballot down the hole. And he says, well, I'm doing my part for democracy, keeping that guy out of the voting group. Now, Boeing 787 is quite an interesting aircraft. It's a beautiful big plane. I've not flown on one yet. Have not flown as much in the recent year. Oops. Come on. And there was one, a particular air show in Paris in 2015 where Boeing was showing off the 787-9. The aviation fans were impressed with the display. The plane in question belonged to Vietnam Airlines. In the video, has more than 18 million views. It almost looked as if the aircraft lifts off on its own accord. And it's not quite a vertical takeoff. The video makes it look kind of like that, but it's not. So we'll take a look and see what it looks like on your end. So are you hearing sound?
Yes.
Okay. I believe if you were a passenger on that flight, you would notice something a little different. It also does some rather radical turns for a big plane like that. Just as a thought that came to me as I watched that years ago when I used to be working for IBM, I was flying frequently from San Jose down to Orange County in California. And for a while, flying out of Orange County was very interesting because if you did it later at night, there was noise abatement laws in place. So what the plane would have to do was it would take off and climb at an extremely steep angle until it got up to over, I don't know, some number of thousands of feet, and then it would level off abruptly. And it was quite scary, the fact that the pilot would come on first and say, well, we're going to do a very strange thing. We're going to go up very abruptly, very steep angle, and then level off. So don't be worried. It's not an accident. We're just doing it because of the laws. So one of those kind of reminded me when I saw this thing going up like that. One thing I want to point out here, OneDrive, this is something that's always driven me nuts. OneDrive drives me nuts, actually, this feature of Windows. OneDrive is not backup. It's not meant as backup. OneDrive is a synchronization. So OneDrive is for file synchronization. File synchronization means the contents of the locations are kept in sync so that what's on your computer and what's in your OneDrive is the same. So the problem is that people will do things like taking a look and saying, well, I got the same thing on both the PC and the OneDrive. I'll delete the OneDrive, the PC version, and then it'll be in the cloud. Well, no, it's not backup. OneDrive is not backup. Keep in mind, hopefully it's clear now. If I put a file into OneDrive, they're uploaded to the cloud. If you delete them on the computer, the deletion will be uploaded. And so that means that a lot of people have probably lost files that way. So exactly what OneDrive is supposed to do, if you delete it from your PC, it's gone from the cloud. So if you want cloud backup, you'll use something else other than OneDrive. All right, now something totally different. Photos. I ran across an article that had iconic photos from each decade of the 20th century. In the mid-1820s, French inventor Joseph Nicephore Niépce, I don't know how to pronounce that, stood up at a window. It took his first picture. Now, not much of a picture. It wasn't, I mean, photography is being invented at this point. People were trying it, other people were trying it. This was an 8-hour exposure. You can imagine what an 8-hour exposure would be today, but at that moment, that would be an entirely new medium was born. So some of these pictures, and by the way, first of all of these have links. There's a link to all of these articles. So when I provide this this file as a PDF, all the links will be live, so you can go and see all of these things that you might want to look at. Here is what the first photo looked like. Not much, but it is in fact a representation, a very gross representation of what's out there on the film. So that was it. Now here we're up to the 20th century, 1903, the first flight. Here's an actual photo. These photos had come a long way, of course, from that particular first one, but first flight, there's a very important photo. 1911, child labor was in full force at this point. Here, look at these. All of these little kids were in a factory there instead of being in school and somewhere they could be educated and so forth. The Breaker Boys photo, 1911. This one, Le Violin d'Ingres, I guess Ingres was her name, 1924. It set a record in 1922 and was sold for $12.4 million. Some photographs have been selling for millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. Amazing. This one is almost enough to scare you. Lunch atop a skyscraper, 1932. There are other photos of that same era when these people who were obviously desperate to have these jobs were willing to be extreme daredevils. And boy, you'd sure have to not have a fear of height to do that kind of work. Raising the flag, a very famous photo from World War II, raised the flag on Iwo Jima, 1945. 1957, in the midst of the desegregation in the South, when they were trying to open up the schools, and some of the governors were fighting it desperately, and the people were fighting it desperately as well. 1968, now we're in the space era. I had this picture On the wall in my first house in Sunnyvale many, many years back, we had the picture actually in a big wallpaper size photo on one wall in my house. Very small house, but a fun place. 1970s, Mr. Nixon giving the victory sign. 1980s, the tank man at the Tiananmen Square standoff in China. And the space telescope taking some amazing pictures, seeing things that we had never seen before in the universe, the pillars of creation. So, all right, on to other things. In the 1930s, a skyscraper was rotated 90 degrees while everyone kept working inside. Sounds kind of strange. I mean, this is kind of something you don't hear much about, but in 1929, Indiana Bell Telephone, back in the good old days of the Bell Telephone companies, they purchased the Central Union Telephone Company. The Bell companies were buying up all the other local telephone companies at that point and consolidating everything. They were going to tear down the Central Union Telephone Company building, but architect Kurt Vonnegut Sr., the father of the famous author, suggested they move it across the lot 52 feet sideways and turn it 90 degrees. And he came up with a plan to do that. The 8-story, 11,000-ton building ended up safely in its new location. And the story is that the offices remained open. I would be a little bit nervous, I think, if I was one of the people working there, but the offices remained open, fully operational during the month-long moving process with no disruptions to telephone service. Each of these have a little bit of a link there, but here's a video giving us a bit about that.
In 1929, the Indiana Bell Telephone Company purchased the Central Union Telephone Company building in Indianapolis and had plans to demolish the aging 1906 structure. The original plan was to build a much larger headquarters on the site. Indiana Bell hired a famous local Indiana architect for the project. The architect's name was Kurt Vonnegut Sr. of Vonnegut, Bond and Mueller. His son, Kurt Vonnegut Jr., would go on to write the 1969 classic Slaughterhouse 5. Kurt Vonnegut Sr. soon had other plans. He wanted to move the building. After an extensive study, it was determined that the best use of the site and existing assets would be to move the existing headquarters and pivot it 90 degrees to the back corner of the lot. This innovative plan allowed for a future expansion and construction of a new building fronting on Meridian Street. However, this was no small task, as the 8-story steel frame and brick building measured about 100 by 135 feet and weighed 11,000 tons. From October 20th to November 14th, 1930, Indiana Bell Telephone Company did something never tried before or since. They pivoted and moved the working central office building. Not only was the building relocated, but the move caused no service outages, and all 600 workers within the building still reported to work every day. Construction crews had to install safety stops in the elevator shafts to make sure safe travel to the basement was no longer possible. Gas, electric power, electric heat, water, and sewage were maintained in the building at all times during the move. All utility cables and pipes serving the building had to be lengthened and made flexible with up to 200 feet of slack to provide continuous service during the move. The building was raised 1/4 inch using 100-ton ratchet screw jacks and placed on rollers. As the mass moved off one roller, workers placed another ahead of it. Each jack was operated by a team of men. Every 6 strokes of the jacks would shift the building 3/8 of an inch, moving at 15 inches per hour. Employees entered and left the traveling structure using a movable passenger walkway that moved with the building. This permitted employees and the public to enter and leave at any time while the move was in progress. The employees reported they never felt the building move, and telephone service went on without interruption. In 1933, a new Indiana Bell telephone building was completed at 240 North Meridian. The old Central Union Telephone Company building can be seen in the back of the lot. In 1963, The old original Central Union Telephone Company building was completely demolished, and by 1968, a new Indiana building was erected, which still stands today.
So it's not only the ancient Egyptians who had amazing architectural things that they did. So also in the 20th century, one amazing feat, like you said, never been repeated again. I've seen other videos of other large old buildings, typically homes, being moved from one lot to another within a city and so forth. But moving a building that weighs 11,000 tons, amazing trick. Now here is something. I don't know if you know more than one language. I know only English, unfortunately. I took German in college, and it was the only class that I failed in college. But anyway, many people around the world want to learn new languages. And so what language do they want to learn on the average? Now, I think a lot of people in the U.S. would like to learn Spanish because there's a lot of people from Spanish-speaking countries in the U.S. But which language do they speak? There's a map that has been put together that shows what most people want in what part of the world, what language most people want to learn. So starting here, here's the North America map. For instance, in Canada, most people want to learn French because one of their provinces is a French-speaking province. In the United States, Spanish, because there are many people from Latin American countries in the U.S. In South America, big portion of the country, of the continent wants to learn English, but also Venezuela, Chinese, and Guyana, Chinese, because the Chinese probably have a lot of investment there and doing a lot of construction. And on the south end of South America, Italian, Argentina, and Uruguay, and Chile, Italian. So interesting. Middle East and Central Asia, Kazakhstan, and some other countries over there, English. A lot of English in that area. Arabic. A lot of countries would like to know how to speak Arabic. So just to give you an idea about that. Now, something totally different. In-N-Out. Now, not everybody has In-N-Out burger, but at California, and we have it here, and I think there are quite a few places around the country now. But one of the things about In-N-Out is they have a very small menu. If you come in there, you've got a single cheeseburger and a double cheeseburger and fries, and that's about it. But there's secret things on the menu. For instance, you can come in and you can order something that says, you can say, I want it animal style, in which case they'll cook it with mustard and and you can ask for onions, with and without onions and so forth. But it's a secret menu. They don't put it up. You have to know what it is. But there have been lots and lots of rumors about weird things on their menu. Double meat, 2 patties on a single bun with nothing else. 3 by 3, 4 by 4. You can actually ask for these. Grilled cheese, which is essentially a cheeseburger without meat. Protein style, it means it's wrapped in lettuce. Animal style, a burger with extra spread, grilled onions, and a patty cooked with mustard. So these are semi-custom orders, not secret items. But if you're an In-N-Out burger fan, be aware that there are some secret things that you may not know about. A few more that may be legitimate. The Flying Dutchman, 2 plain patties with cheese and an optional onion wrap. Lemon fries, French fries with squeezed lemon. That's kind of weird. Scooby snack, a plain patty and a wrapper. Roadkill fries, French fries with crumbled meat, and a Neapolitan shake, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry all mixed together. So try it out. If you've got an In-N-Out near you, go try it. See what happens. Now, something that we may not have been aware of, the ancient Romans had central heating. Rome had some amazing things going on. We see occasional documentaries we watch on the documentary on a couple of different channels on Prime, and there's another one that we watch. It's some of these about the technology the Romans had. They use many technologies that are surprisingly modern, much of which was lost for thousands of years until we got up to the modern times. The techniques they used to heat public bathhouses and buildings and so forth is interesting. Heated with what's called a hypocaust system, where the floor was raised up on pillars, creating an empty space underneath. An external furnace called a praefurnium, which was used, wood burning, piped in hot air to the area, and that air would be warming the stone or tile floor above, known as a suspensora. So the way it looked would be like this. The floor is raised, got space underneath, the fire. Now, the Roman central heating system required more slaves than our modern heating systems do. Most of us don't have quite as many slaves as the Romans did, so we have to rely on having our local HVAC companies come and put in our heating and air conditioning systems. But there it is. These folks are all just reclining and having a nice time, having a little eat, a little to drink, and a warm house. Now, you can download 1,000 or more digitized tapes of sounds and classics from Hollywood films and TV, courtesy of the Internet Archive. There's a website called the Internet Archive. The article tells all about where it is. There'll be lots of classic movies there. The one thing they point out is that there's certain sounds that are interesting. Things that have been repeated from one movie to the next. There's a particular sound that was interesting called the Wilhelm scream, which according to Oliver Macaulay at the Science and Media Museum has been used in over 400 films and TV programs. So this one scream that was done for this movie, and I've seen an article talking about how often they had to repeat it until they got it right. They wanted a really accurate scream. Well, that same scream is in movie after movie after movie. So anyway, go and check out that website. That's an interesting one. Download 1,000 digitized tapes of sounds and see what you find. Advanced moon photography. This is the most advanced moon photography ever, featuring interesting surface details. Somebody did a tremendous job of taking photos of the moon. Required 4 days of continuous moon observation and shooting. So this image size came out to be 708 gigabytes, a little bit bigger than what our normal cameras can give us these days. And it was 81,000 images stacked. I don't know if you're familiar with image stacking, but there's various ways in photography, in post photography editing, where you can stack images to either average out the lighting or average out the resolution. In this case, mostly for the resolution, I suspect. And what they came up with was some amazing photos by merging 4 different moon phases and merging the shadow areas reveals an interesting topography of lunar surface. It's not all using home type equipment, stuff that you can buy. This is not stuff that NASA had. This is not government things. This is not $1 million equipment. A Skywatcher Flex 2 250p telescope camera was a Canon EOS 1200D. No AI involved. The image resolution 159.7 million pixels. And this is what the moon looks like if it was a flat disk with mountains on it. So here's one of the images. You can see from the picture, if you've got a big enough, high enough resolution on your screen, very clear, very detailed pictures of the surface of the moon. Much clearer than any that I've seen in the past. And this is some pretty amazing pretty amazing resolution. If they had this prior to the moon landings back in the 70s, we'd probably have done a better job of choosing a location. But anyway, this gentleman, Darya Kawa Mizara, in Erbil, Iraq. And so there's a link to the Instagram location for the picture, so you can see some more of the pictures there. Now, 7 innovations that came out of World War II, and I hadn't thought about this. Thinking about things coming out of the war, you think, well, a lot of technology was developed because there was such an emergency to get things going and to develop new things to win the war. But some studies have shown that there's a significant decline in inventiveness after the outbreak of war, followed by a marked surge. So that when the war starts, the inventiveness seems to drop off a bit, but then it really takes over because now the problem is understood. Creation through necessity or even desperation certainly happens, but prosperous, peaceful, and free societies tend to just be inventive, if not more so. So there are plenty of technological inventions that have taken place during World War II, some of them a bit surprising. This article lists quite a few of them, but there's a few of them that I pulled together here. Duct tape. In some of these, it's not so much surprising what the article is, but how it came about. This woman, Vesta Stout, an LA woman with 2 sons serving in the Navy, she was working in an ordnance plant, like so many women were in those days, working in the production. She noticed a problem with the ammunition boxes. They were sealed with paper tape with a tab to open them, but the tab could easily tear off, leaving them making it difficult to open the boxes. So she came up with the idea of a waterproof fabric tape to seal the boxes. She sent it to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was impressed with it and sent the letter to the War Production Board, which came up with what we now know as duct tape. So here, necessity is the mother of invention. This was because somebody noticed that they needed that product. Radar, the fundamental principle underlying modern radar, radio detection and ranging, first observed in 1886, but it was during World War II that modern radar became available. It was the British invented the cavity magnetron in 1940, paving the way for more compact, powerful radar units. And as it happens, also microwave ovens. So radar, which led the way to microwave ovens, was invented. Obviously, the English needed, the British needed it because they were being bombed regularly, and they needed to be able to find out when the planes were coming and where they were coming from. Just as an aside here, this is a picture of the original radar range microwave oven by Amana. Back in those days, when this was first out, back in the early 70s, a neighbor and I both decided that we would buy these for our wives for Christmas. Seemed like a nice thing to have. So we lived 2 doors apart. So we each bought one and put it in our garage and told our wives that it was for the other guy's. We were hiding it for the other guy's wife, for the other guy, so his wife wouldn't know about it. And so it didn't really work really well, but it was our attempt at a subterfuge. Anyway, this is what it looked like. So there were these things in our garage. But here are some other things. Mass-produced penicillin. Tremendous advantage to the West for the war because being able to heal and cure the various problems that happened with our soldiers and sailors. We had penicillin, and it was kept a great secret so that the Germans wouldn't get it, and the Japanese. Jet engines, electronic computers make tremendous strides. Here's an early laptop here. Super glue, and the slinky, oddly enough, came along as somebody was observing something going on in one of their equipment, something they were developing, and noticed that this piece of spring started walking across the floor by itself after they dropped it. and they come up with the idea for it to be a toy, and made a bunch of money on it. Moving along, every country's favorite ice cream flavor mapped. It's important to know what favorite ice cream flavors are, but interesting to see that what they're saying is that in Canada and the United States, the Neapolitan ice cream is the favorite flavor. Now, it isn't the only flavor. I mean, we had, Baskin Robbins 31 flavors, whatever. So, but Neapolitan, they're saying. But then some places, chocolate, other places, Rocky Road, and other parts of the world, different flavors, vanilla, pistachio, China, matcha, whatever that is. India, vanilla. But this map kind of shows you a little bit of everything. Brazil, pistachio. That would be good. Mango, melon, all kinds of different flavors there. So there's an article there if you want to go and see what any particular country is. If you're going to go and take a vacation somewhere and find out what the flavors you're going to be finding, you find out favorite ice cream flavors, strawberry, mango, Rocky Road, and so forth. And here's something for the election last year that I thought was kind of appropriate, especially for us here in Arizona. We had a tremendous number of, so many propositions that the ballot went to 2 pages. And this guy is mulling over this ballot proposition, which says a vote of yes on this proposition means police and elected officials may indiscriminately punch us in the face. A no vote means they may only hit our legs with sticks. I mean, it's an absurd proposition, obviously, but almost apropos of what some of these propositions were. We had competing propositions that with one, if two of them passed, they might actually nullify each other. So strange things.
Back here in Colorado, a little update on a story we brought you a couple weeks ago. A photographer had captured a really funny moment when a goat got on top of a parked car and started dancing around. Tonight, we get to hear from that photographer. Tony Keith has that story.
Dude, those are footprints. There was a goat on my car.
A Colorado woman got back from a hike at Mount Blue Sky in mid-July and was shocked to see what had happened to her car.
Oh my god! I wish I could say that. That is too funny.
Her wish was granted thanks to local photographer Michael Rhino.
So I pulled over and started photographing, particularly the babies. This time of the year, there's, the young ones are running around and frolicking on the rocks.
Despite 8 years of photography experience under his belt, Michael was forced to reach for his cell phone.
All of a sudden, a couple of the adults came up and started climbing up on the car.
Then this happened.
Never expected one of them to actually get up on the roof rack and start doing its little dance.
Capturing a moment fit for Colorado, a dancing goat on top of a Subaru. This had to go on social media.
At first, it was, okay, it's got 1,000 views. Wow, that's more than I think I had in most of my still images and so forth. And all of a sudden, when it got into the upper thousands, and all of a sudden when it hits 1 million, 1.2 million or something like that, I think is where we're at now.
And it didn't take long for Michael to get connected with the owner of this car with a license plate that reads Glamp.
The Glamp word really is interesting. She has that as sort of her tagline when her camping is far from the glamorous type of camping that we think of as glamping.
Being able to share a moment that many wouldn't believe unless they saw it themselves.
Be sure to keep your eyes open and sort of look around in your environment. You never know what you might see.
I guess better the roof rack than the roof of the car. Car owner is Mindy Williford. Good on her for her chill attitude, because not everybody would be thrilled to find their car stomped on by a goat. There you go.
And as she said, there you go. You never know what's going to happen. And 1.5 million views, whatever that has seen here. And you can take from that animals do have fun. Animals can actually do something that appears to be purely for enjoyment. Just jumping around on that roof rack seemed like that goat was having a wonderful time. All right, just another little thing to put in perspective about our lifetime here on this planet. Dinosaurs were alive longer than they've been extinct. Dinosaurs have been extinct for 65 million years. but they were alive for 165 million years. That's hard to imagine. You could imagine, think about what it would be if humans were to populate this planet for the next 165 million years. I'm not sure that's very likely, but think about what that would be compared to, we look at science fiction as the next 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 years, 165 million years. Our time on Earth began a few 100,000 years ago and accounts for just 0.007% of Earth's history. If you compress the planet's history into one calendar year, beginning with the Triassic period, dinosaurs would have appeared on January 1, would have gone extinct in the third week of September, and humans wouldn't have shown up until December 31st. So we're late on the calendar. So there's the link to that particular one. Now, we see a lot about the space launches these days with Mr. Musk and his rockets being the main way of lifting satellites into orbit anymore. SpinLaunch, however, is a company that is planning on trying to come up with a new way of doing that without the rockets. Now, the one thing about the rockets we don't hear much about, but they do cause a tremendous amount of pollution. You see all of the smoke and the fire from the rockets, but that is actually tremendous amount of pollution into the atmosphere. This company has developed a rotating arm that spins a satellite up into a extremely high rate of speed and then lets it go. And they've had their 10th successful flight. Demonstrated that standard satellite components are inherently compatible with their environment, because you got to think about this. The payload is being able to have to survive 10,000 Gs, 10,000 times the force of Earth's gravity, just to survive to get launched. 108-foot long rotating arm inside spins up and sends it off. But here's how it does it. First, here's an animation of the sequence. Illustration of the components of the satellite that's going to be launched. Notice it does have a rocket engine, but that doesn't come into play until later. The satellite has been encased in an external shell, now being moved into position for preparation. Now comes the fancy part. Starts to spin. And it goes faster and faster and faster. So if this would be successful, if this becomes a successful venture, which they're still working on it, that would obviate the need for a first stage rocket. So obviously it wouldn't take care of every satellite at this point, but it is a technology. If it gets proven, it could save an awful lot of first stage launches and a lot of pollution. Now here's an article in /Gear that talks about the 10 most historically significant aircraft in aviation history, starting with the Montgolfier brothers balloon back in June 4th of 1783. The Douglas DC-3, the first profitable passenger-carrying aircraft in commercial aviation history. In this particular program, I kept running across things that I had some connection to. I worked for an airline in Chicago at Midway Airport when I was in college back in the late 50s and in early 60s. And the first flight I ever took in my life was on a DC-3. And oddly enough, the first flight I took, never having been off the ground before, I flew as a flight attendant. Things were a bit more lax in those days. The captain of that particular plane asked me if I would be willing to fly to New York and back on the plane from Chicago and hand out lunches and be the flight attendant. And I told him I'd never flown before. What if I get airsick? And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You'll not have a problem." So I did, and I went, and I made $50 for flying to New York and back on a DC-3 full of students going home for Christmas vacation. It was a nice way to start flying. This one, the SR-71 Blackbird, later after college, I was working for Elgin Watch Company in Chicago, and Elgin Watch Company actually made some parts that went into this. So at the time our company was dealing with the Skunk Works, the Douglas Skunk Works down in Burbank. So actually some of the parts that we were selling were part of this particular aircraft. Now, something totally different, how to freeze your credit if your information was leaked in a Social Security breach. It's recommended that you take a number of steps. Now, obviously, there's so much these days. I'm sure a lot of people have already done this because it just seems so obvious that you'd want to do this. But because of so many scams and so many stolen credit reports and so forth, you should put put a freeze on your credit report. Go to all three of your credit bureaus and put a credit freeze on. It's the best way. It's free. Includes when you sign up for an account with each of these outfits. First of all, they'll try to sell you extra monitoring services, which you don't probably really need, but you can get them if you want. But you get a free account with each of them, and then sign up and put a credit freeze on all of your accounts. Be sure you save your PIN number. They'll give you a PIN number for unlocking it, but save that. Be sure you keep that in a file somewhere. So go about freezing credit. Get a free account with each of the three bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. A request must be made separately to each one. The service is free. Once an account is created, username and password, users can simply click a button and freeze their credit. The request can also be submitted by mail or phone with each agency. Typically these days it would be by computer, but you can do it if you're not comfortable with that. You can mail a letter or whatever. And within 3 business days, so it can be submitted by mail. Typically it will take place very quickly, and it's easy to have it taken off temporarily and put back on. So if you want to open a new credit card, for instance, you have to take the freeze off. Might be only one account. I ran into one situation where I was getting credit somewhere, and they required that I unfreeze all 3 of them. And you can do that, but you can tell it how long to unfreeze it for. You can say unfreeze it for 24 hours, and then it'll automatically go back to a frozen state. So that way you minimize your exposure to any kind of scams. All right. top 10 smallest country by population. Number 10, Dominica, 73,000 people. St. Kitts and Nevis, 47,000. Marshall Islands, Liechtenstein, 39,000. Monaco, San Marino, Palau, 18,000. We're getting down there. Nauru, 12,000. Tuvalu, 11,000. And, of course, the number one, Vatican City, with a population of 517, and it is an independent country. 7 reasons why a Chromebook is best laptop for most people. Windows, MacBooks, iPads, and everything all have more to do, more things that you have to work on and more things you have to do to keep them running properly than a Chromebook. But if you want to get something really simple and do mainly what you do is browsing and stuff that you do on the internet, there's all kinds of things you can do on the internet beyond browsing, of course. It'll be one of the best tech decisions you'll make. If you're looking for a new laptop, usually you go and you think about a Windows Mac laptop or a MacBook. I'm really down on laptops anymore because they're not the newest laptops. They can't be maintained, they can't be upgraded and so forth, and you may not need to do that anyway. Chromebooks have grown into user-friendly laptops. It used for both productivity and personal and business. Most of our work now happens within web browsers, so Chromebooks offer a perfect marriage. If you're using something like Quicken or Photoshop, things like that, this is non-starter. But if you're doing mostly stuff that can be done on the internet, then Chromebook. They're inexpensive. They're less expensive. Purchase a very respectable Chromebook, say the Asus Chromebook Flip C4333 for $373. Acer Chromebook Plus for $289. They're user-proof. Ease of use, way ahead of the competition. You can sit down with a Chromebook and put it to use immediately. I had a fellow that in one article I read that a fellow was an author for one of the tech websites, and he was at a show reviewing some new technical equipment coming out for his next article that he has to write, and he wants to make money on it, so you got to have the information there. So he's got his computer with him, and fortunately he had a Chromebook because while he was there it failed. Now you might say that's not a good thing, but what he did was he went to Best Buy around the corner from the show, bought a new Chromebook and brought it back in and took off right where he left off, because with Chromebook, everything is on the internet. All he had to do was sign in with his password, his Google password, his Gmail password, and he had everything right back where he started. So it was something you couldn't do with a Windows computer or a Mac. Now they're fast. The newest ones are fast. They boot up in just a few seconds. Get a Chromebook for that. Chromebooks are reliable. It's mostly a web browser. Even Linux and Android app support is there. You'll seldom have a problem with any of that. Chromebooks are flexible. They automatically save everything into the Google Cloud service. This leaves your on-device storage space free for whatever you want. They tend to have small SSDs, so you're not saving much on there. You can upgrade your laptop. You won't have to transfer files to a new machine. But you have to have constant internet access. You can't do much without being online. They have a file sync feature that you can use to synchronize your Google Drive accounts if you want to have certain files synchronized to your Chromebook. You can work a while away from a connection, but when you return, then your files are automatically uploaded. So they're very flexible. They're secure. Literally, it gets a verification at boot time and a read-only OS that blocks executables, data encryption, sandboxing, and so forth. So Only 57 Chrome OS security exploits have been documented so far. And that's like the same as a day for Windows probably. And you won't need antivirus or anti-malware. Just make sure to apply all the updates when they become available, and they'll be updated regularly, just very simply. And they can be easily restored. If you wind up having a problem with Chrome misbehaving or whatever, you can simply do a power wash, factory reset, and you'll be right back to where you started, except for something you may have saved on the computer itself, but which is not very likely. No other operating system can compete with the ability to factory reset and return you to a pristine working state without losing your data. Not for serious video editing, audio recording, or other CPU heavy, but for regular everyday work, this could be your best choice. Now here's the top 10 world's longest bridges. In Louisiana, the number 10. Number 9, Wuhan, China. Lake Pontchartrain Causeway in Louisiana. Another one in China. Thailand, the Bang Nok Expressway. Another one in China. And China again. China's a big country, have a lot of long bridges between Beijing and Shanghai. 157 kilometers in Taiwan. 164 in Jiangsu province in China. So a lot of long bridges, just so you'll know. Again, here's the link to the article. Here's 40 charts and guides that might change your perspective on things. Infographics, instant eye catchers. Infographics is an interesting way, instead of just having a list of numbers or some simple chart, infographics takes and adds more in the way of information, so you can just glance at something and really get a better feel for what it is. There's a list of visual trivia for you to munch on. A few of them are life essentials, like picking the right apple and laundry cycles. Might also come across a handful that come in handy any particular day. So here is some of them, just a few. Number 3, a cool guide to equality, equity, and justice, thinking about how people and how things work in a particular country, our own in particular. Reality is that one gets more than needed. That's why we have a tremendous number of billionaires and millionaires in this country. So one gets more than needed while others get less than is needed, and a huge disparity occurs. Equality assumes that everybody gets exactly the same. Everybody benefits from the same support. This is considered to be equal treatment. Equity means that everybody gets the same benefit, and justice says everybody gets inequalities are addressed and the system barriers are removed. So just an interesting way to look at that. A cool guide to the evolution of the alphabet, where the letters come from, these alphabets that we use. Here's the modern alphabet, and showing, running down through these lines, showing where the various letters came from. A cool guide on how to jump a car. One little easy one here with 7 steps. I've had to do that recently. 27 states, or states with a smaller population than Los Angeles County. All of these states in blue have fewer people than Los Angeles County. Here's a guide to help understand Morse code. I did a presentation recently on on the invention of the telegraph. I presented that to some groups on APCUG. This guy put together this thing here, said start here. So for instance, the letter E, a single dot. Whoops, hold on. Letter E, a single dot. Letter A, dot dash. Letter W, dot dash dash. Letter J, dot dash dash J dash. So you could read, you could see all of the Morse code characters that way. And a Z would be dash dash dot dot. So something to study. Guide to understand if you're living in the past, present, or future. I'll let you read that over later when you get the presentation, but past, present, future, overthinking, thinking worse. And this is a very helpful one here, I think, based on feelings and thoughts. Here's the top 10 countries with increasing forest areas. Romania. Italy. This is increasing forest area. So this is countries that are trying to reforest and get things back to nature. Turkey. India. And these numbers, these places they're comparing them to is in England, because this came from BBC. In China, 12 times the size of London. So if you notice, it's all comparing to the areas of various places in England. And now a bit about artificial intelligence, of course. 7 apps that may convince you about artificial intelligence. Now, I did this presentation a month ago or more, just about a month ago. So consequently, almost everything in here may be somewhat outdated and has all moved along since then, but it is a good guide to start with. There's a way to help you or older relatives to explore the benefits of artificial intelligence. These are apps to look at and introduce yourself and your parents to. Simple enough that you don't need a lot of explanation, and are so useful that you and they will wonder what technology has been hiding. So this is from Tom's Guide. This is Tom's Guide, a very good website for information about all things technology to do with Windows and so forth. So if you want to go out to Tom's Guide and sign up for their newsletter, you get a free newsletter with a lot of good information every week. There's 7 apps. The first one is ChatGPT, developed by OpenAI. There's a lot of different ways to get to that. Content creation, interactive conversations. I've used ChatGPT and Gemini, both, for some of my presentation preparation. I've gone in there and said, here's the outlook, here's the outcome of what I'm trying to do. Here's who I'm trying to do it for. Here's the kind of information I'd like to have. Please give it to me. And it gives a great start on researching things. So Google Gemini is available in many different places, including on Android phones. And I noticed this morning when I was looking through some articles on my phone for the first time, it's as I was looking through these articles, the first thing that came up with the head of each article was a little box that said, click here to let Gemini give you a rehash of what the article is about. And so you can see in a few lines if you're interested enough to read it. Google Maps is AI. Google Maps have AI components offering real-time route planning and traffic updates and so forth. I remember triptychs. Of course, a lot of us probably remember the triptychs from AAA. Used to use those in the old days. I remember going along and driving along, and I'd be driving and my wife, or vice versa, and one of us peeling off the next page on our triptych as we're going next page to next page as the map went along. I wish I'd saved a couple of those. They would be kind of fun to have now. And you can use Google Maps to find places to visit. Waze is another one that's good for travel. A lot of AI involved there, and Waze, I think, is now owned by Google. So say, hey, Google, and get into Waze. Grammarly, if you're writing articles or writing a book, or in case you're maybe writing as you're now a retiree, you're writing a great American novel, you can use Grammarly to check your grammar and so forth. There's a paid and a free version. Obviously, if you want to get serious and make big time on the writing market, you want to get the paid version. YOU.com, another great AI location place. That one reason it says is because it helps summarize articles, everything from news stories to notices, It can be summarized and broken down into terms that are easier to understand. And Microsoft Copilot, which seems to be on pretty much all the Windows 11 now, I guess on Windows 11, 10 as well. Copilot, one of the best Windows laptops, is on some of the best Windows laptops. You might find this app naturally less intimidating because it's already there, sitting on your probably on your taskbar. All right, top 10 countries with the speediest internet. Hungary. These are averages. Average downloads, fast enough to download. Monaco, high speed, few people. Hong Kong, high speed, a lot of people. I like the fact they give a little indication here that you can download Top Gun in 41 seconds. Download Harry Potter books in 12 seconds. Luxembourg, 118 megabits per second. Gibraltar, downloads speed in 26 seconds. Andorra, 213 megabits, getting pretty fast here. Jersey, 218. And Liechtenstein with 229. And those are pretty fast ones. I don't know if you've got what's our local one here? The local internet connection via cable. They've got up to a terabyte now on that one. So I've got 600 megabits here, and I don't need that, but I've got it anyway. So what the heck? This is from BBC Science Focus magazine. That's where all those little videos came from. And BBC has a lot of good stuff, but I just wanted to point out that it's a magazine on the website, on the Libby application. And if your local library, wherever you are, has Libby, then that's available to you to free via the Libby app in our library and a lot of other libraries around the country. So if you go here, you can probably find out if your library has that available. So I found that by looking through our library here, that there's tons of magazines that would be very expensive to subscribe to, but you can view them all online on your library, as long as you have a library subscription, which is free, and so that's a kind of a good thing to have. So here's just a cartoon, non sequitur. He did a lot of fun cartoons there. Ned and Irene's analog search engine. Old school information. If we don't know it, you don't need it. Advice given without being asked. So here's, instead of going on and doing a Google search, you get a place that's got real maps and they give you real information right there. Now I remember this myself because I'm old. Before FedEx and UPS, there was REA Express. We used to call it REA Express, Railway Express Agency. Fast, dependable through service. This was before the airlines and before all that good stuff. There wasn't FedEx and there wasn't UPS and all that kind of stuff now, but you had Railway Express Agency. They had trains and trucks. There was a nice list. Here's all their trucks here ready to go from the Railway Express Agency. The train comes in, load up all the trucks just like they do now with Amazon and all the others. There's one of our regular old trucks, just like now, only a lot slower and with cigarette ads on the side. This one I thought was kind of apropos. Oh, how cute! They say that its name is malware. The first download. Somebody getting a Trojan horse. The first download. Visualized, comparing the Titanic to a modern ship, gives you a picture of the idea of what the Titanic looked like, the unsinkable Titanic and the iceberg, and a modern cruise ship, which are exceptionally too big, I think. Royal Caribbean 228,000 tons versus 46,000 tons on the Titanic. And comparing the Titanic to a modern cruise ship. School bus size. Airbus, 180 people. And Titanic is small compared to cruise ships. I think I think I'll leave that one and let you guys look at that later. I'm running over time here, I know. Boston Dynamics new video shows a humanoid robot doesn't need a human. There's a case where a robot was given the list of bin locations and parts to move and so forth, and goes on and does its own thing. And the one thing I like about this especially is that it does some things that we can't do. Now he gets whatever he's going to pick up here. Now he's going to grab it, and he's going to turn around, but he turns in ways that we can't. Body, top, and bottom rotating at various interesting angles. And he seems to have the ability to rotate 180 degrees, 360 degrees. So again, I'll let that one go. Move on to the next one here. Here's a website you can go to. It's called the Amazing Fact Generator. Just click here and you will get new facts. This one came up, was one of the ones that was there. Ronald Reagan's presidency, Air Force One was outfitted with jelly bean holders because he likes jelly beans as his snack. And that is the end of this particular program. I know I went over time, but that's the best I could do. So
Amazing,
there you go.
amazing places. I took a couple of screenshots so I could have it right away before I got the follow-up video.
Yeah, I will send the PDF of this out pretty quickly. I'll get it out today or tomorrow, and you'll have all the links to all that stuff. It's fun stuff out there. It's just you can see why people spend so much time on the internet, because it's just too much stuff to look at.
Bill, did you get anything for anybody asking JB?
No questions at all, but it was a great presentation,
Oh.
JB. Thank you.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch it and share some of those links to other people.
Particularly the robot. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, let me see if I can turn around like that.
I remember there was a video I used in this program a long time ago where they were first doing some of the robot testing, and the government, one of the government agencies that works with technology, had people bringing in their robots to be tested to see who they might contract with. And most of the robots, excuse me, most of the robots had all they could do to take a step without falling over. And this was, you're talking 8 or 10 years ago, and it was just hilarious because there was made a video that was just humor. It was just all these robots who walk up to a doorknob, grab the doorknob, and fall backwards. I mean, it was just hilarious compared to what they're doing now. Excuse me. Good thing I quit. I lost my voice already. The fact that so much is going on now that they can start fine-tuning things, picking up eggs and doing various little things that are
Right.
amazing stuff.
Also, the radar range, the microwave, that brings back memories. We had one of those in my household that looked exactly like that.
Yeah, that was one of the very, very first ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always still remember the fact we had those in our garages, 2 doors apart, and each one telling the other one it's for the other wife.
How did that work out?
Well, I think they pretty well figured it out beforehand. I think it didn't quite stay as secret as it was, but they were happy to get them.
Yeah.
It worked. It paid for itself in the long run because they were, you know, it was all analog controlled and around dials and everything, but it was still a great machine, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of APCUG, I want to thank JB for sharing with us, and I'm sure that Judy will have him scheduled in the future for his next update on the things on the web.
Oh, I do have questions now.
Okay, quick.
That's just one. I think I know the answer. The question was, does JB own a Chromebook?
Right at the moment, I am not. I have a Chromebook in my living room that I use every afternoon when I'm in there watching TV and stuff. I use that for all my browsing and everything there. Right now, actually, what I'm sitting in front of is I've got a big tower that I built myself, put in the motherboard and processor and memory and all that kind of stuff, and two 24-inch monitors on my desktop. Because I do a lot of the other stuff. I do photo editing, I do Quicken, I do all these things that require something that a Chromebook can't do. But I think for the majority of people who don't do that stuff, the Chromebook is probably the best way to go because it is really bulletproof. You just, I mean, it gets old, it gets dated, you get rid of it, you get a new one. There's nothing to convert. You just start it up and put in your Google account and you're running.
And I would agree. I've given a couple Zoom presentations on mine, particularly when I'm doing a presentation on everything Google. I use the Chromebook to do the presentation.
Yeah, I could. I mean, I've got a nice little one there. In fact, I bought it used for like $150 on Amazon, and it's been working great for years. It's a little Lenovo Chromebook. So, yeah, they're inexpensive. They're good.
Are Chromebook files private?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are Chromebook files private?
Well, the files are in your Google Drive. And so that was typically, I mean, that's encrypted between your Chromebook and Google Drive. If you wanted to be more private, you'd have to encrypt them yourself, but that's as private as it gets, I guess. And the files aren't on your Chromebook; they're on Google, so Google is pretty well protected.
Okay, I think we'll stop and thank JB and invite him back again